when we bring community into what we do, we're offering people the chance to not be alone in their work. So if you're anything like most of the people that we help and that we serve, they might be the only entrepreneur they know. And it's a lonely world. And that's where being able to offer someone a community, in that case, a group of like-minded people who get it, that's huge.
I'm really excited to welcome Jeff and Dan Walker to the stage in just a minute. I read Jeff's book many, many years ago, The Product Launch Formula, and it's changed my life. I've literally crafted so much of what I do in my business and work as a creator and in the creator economy based on the work of Jeff. So excited to have them today. We're going to be talking about the lessons of 30 years from the Launch Masters. So welcome, Jeff and Dan, to the stage. What's up, gentlemen?
Darrell.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Hey, man.
Good. Well, I have known you, Jeff, specifically for a long time. I first learned about you when I was working for a guy named Donald Miller at Story Brand very early on. And I basically consumed Product Launch Formula in the early days. And I've now probably made $50 to $60 million for myself and other creators based on the stuff that you've taught.
Wow.
And so everything that I do, I think, has seeping in of Jeff Walker Product Launch Formula into it. So I am very excited about this conversation today because the world has changed so much, and also nothing has changed all at the same time. So for those who don't know you as well as I know you, from your own voice and lips, tell us what we should know about Jeff Walker.
That I had the most humble beginnings in my business that you could imagine. I was a stay-at-home dad. My wife was supporting the family. I launched my business out of desperation. I spent about 8 years in growing a business online, teaching people about the stock market. And then when that business suddenly ended, by that point, this was 2005 now, I had developed a methodology for launching and gotten some expertise. So I started teaching people that in 2005. And it's been a crazy ride since then. My students and clients, they're well over $1 billion in results. I mean, that's not even counting your 50 or 60 million, Darrell.
Oh, on there. 1 billion and 50 million.
I didn't know about that one. But yeah, so I've been able to build some communities. I hope we get to talk about communities a little bit, because that is sort of a hidden superpower. I consider a superpower of mine. But Product Launch Formula came out in 2005. At that point, it was a bunch of discs, and CDs and DVDs and books that we shipped out. And then in 2008, it became an online course. And I've been iterating it and revising it and revamping it and making it better and adapting it to the latest technology. So it's now, I'm pretty sure no one's ever disputed this, it's the longest running, continuously updated training there is in the world on online entrepreneurship. So that's sort of it. I came out with that book that you showed in 2014. Here's the new version, Darrell. I'll have to get your address and I'll send you a signed.
I got this one. I use this one all the time.
Well, I'll send you a signed copy of the newer version. Became a #1 New York Times bestseller. It's been a crazy ride. And, along that way, Dan started working with me. It was actually in 2010. And, when I started out, like I said, it was the most humble beginnings. I didn't have any team whatsoever for years until, oh my gosh, almost a decade. It was just my wife and I, and then started to grow a team and gradually grew a team. Dan joined in 2010 and has worked his way up to be our #1 person building our launches and planning our launches, and is soon to eclipse me if he hasn't already in his expertise. And then just finally, we switched our whole business over to Mighty. That's why I'm very excited here. I forget how many, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now we've been on Mighty, and we've gradually shifted first our community, and then our high-end coaching program, and then and now the entire, our course, everything is moved over to Mighty, and it's been amazing.
Amazing. And Dan, I know that you've been studying copywriting and marketing for a long, long time. And honestly, like how what a great blessing to learn from somebody like your dad. Tell me a little bit about your background and kind of how you got started, and now the role you're playing a little bit more in the business too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, a blessing indeed, for sure. I think that honestly, I think copywriting has shaped a lot of who I am. Like, I think, back when I was, what was it? I must have been high school, maybe even earlier. I think, like it'd have kind of the normal chores, and like they kind of had some like optional chores they could do to, earn a little bit of side money, and I remember actually even going back before, I think elementary school, it was like entering leads into a spreadsheet for like a cent a lead or something like that. And then like middle school, it became like, all right, if you read, one of Gary Halbert's letters. So if you don't know who Gary Halbert is, just absolutely legendary copywriter, and most of his stuff is available. All his daily letters are available just for free online. And so I would just like read one of those letters and kind of submit a report, if you will, kind of like, here's what he did and here's what he was trying to do and the goal and how he got about to it and what he did in that letter. And that got me like $5 or something like that. But I
So
just thought it was super interesting. I mean, copy is the way that we express ourselves out into the world, to the people who don't know us in our business. And I just think that's such a fascinating thing to be able to shape so intentionally.
yeah.
So studying copywriting for a long time. In college, I originally started because Jeff had the vision of like, you know what, hey, this thing called video is going to be this big thing. Video is going to be everywhere online. Like, so he asked like, hey, you want to learn how to work a camera and shoot the latest version of Product Launch Formula that's going to come out soon? And I was like, sure, that sounds better than working at Subway. Discovered I really liked cameras, discovered I really liked storytelling. I really found a niche for myself, applying my copywriting knowledge to video production. And so I, joined the team, shot that version of Product Launch Formula. But back then it was, no one's putting out regular videos, right? Like video production was a massive task. YouTube was still pretty new. So it was something where I was only doing stuff with, with Jeff and his business every now and again. And so on the side, I grew a whole video production business where I basically did, script writing, video production, all kind of for entrepreneurs, all for this world, and primarily for launches and membership sites and book launches and things like that. Live events like this one, if it were to be an in-person event, and grew quite the little business for myself there, helping produce launches behind the scenes, both with Jeff and a lot of other big names in the industry. And then, around 2019 time, 2020, coming into the pandemic there, I kind of went all in here, came back, started working full time back with Internet Alchemy with Jeff, and took more of a front stage role with planning our launches.
It's amazing. What I think is so fun about this conversation is there's really three things. We can get a little bit meta because Jeff, you said something about launching your business out of desperation. And I want to start there in just a second, because I think there's many people who probably feel similarly right now. They're sitting at their kitchen table or in their guest room of their house today being like, Jeff, you don't understand how desperate I am. I want to tap back into that moment way back then, starting their business. So you actually started a business, but now you've consulted a ton of businesses, and $1 billion of earnings from your clients is insane. And so I want to talk about what has not changed in 30 years and what has changed. And then we can land on community being part of that, and recurring revenue and community, and that being a big part of the world now that maybe wasn't even a part of the conversation 10, 15 years ago. So take us back to that launching out of desperation, because that feels like I felt visceral when you said that. It was like, oh, so many people are there. So many people are like, I'm trying so hard. I feel so desperate. I feel trapped at what I'm doing. I want to do that. And I want to go 25, 30 years into the future and look back and be like, yeah, I was there too, but now I built something. But talk to me about that time in your life and what that desperation felt like and kind of how it all got started.
Well, Darrell, I use that word intentionally because I know, we attract into our world, into our business. It's amazing. For those who are just starting out, this is who the people we end up attracting are a mirror of ourselves. And I know a lot of the people that I attract into my world right now are people that just want to, they're service oriented. They just want to change the world. They've got some work and they want to help people. And that is like their primary motivator more than money. And I honor that. And I love those people. And I also want to speak to the people, because we can get caught up in that, because social media can show so much of that. And because people can sort of be grandstanding with like, I'm just, I'm not about the money, I'm just about helping people. But the reality is that there's an awful lot of people that just need to make some money. And it's not to say they aren't helping people, they're not putting out great products, but they need to make some money. And I can remember that. So that's where I was, is I failed in the corporate world. I had a corporate career and I was not good at it and I escaped it. I quit just before they would have fired me, probably the next week. And then my wife was supporting the family. She had a good job, but she was supporting the family. And, when with Dan being on here, it's a little odd because I don't want to talk about when he was a baby, but he was literally a year old when I left the corporate world. And then few years later, we had my daughter as well. And then we had 2 kids. We had four of us on my wife's income. And we had a roof over our heads and we had food on the table, but that was about all we had. And at one point, my wife, Mary, who's just been an amazing support throughout my entire life and throughout this entire business, she came to me and said, is there some way you can figure out a way to make an extra $10,000 in a year? And she would, it feels like we're just hanging by a thread. And so that became my mission. And at that point, this is the mid 90s. And back then, dudes didn't like stay at home to take care of their kids. So I committed career suicide, but this online thing was starting to happen. And I was really, my goal was to be a stock market trader, just to trade the markets and be able to support us. But we had no money to start trading. And I had studied the market intensely, and I had a mentor who was trading for a living. And so I started to build this small email list, and it's a crazy long story. I actually started building that email list because I wanted to use it to try to get back into college, back into graduate school, to get another degree, to go back to the corporate world. So it was a crazy story, but at some point it was like I built up that small list and I said, maybe they'll buy some. They're getting a free newsletter from me. Maybe they'll actually buy something from me. And I was scared to. I'd never done any sales before, never done any marketing before, and this is one thing that was seeming to happen in my life. I had maybe 600 people that were getting this email newsletter from me, and all of a sudden, I was not just a stay-at-home dad. I was like a stay-at-home dad who also had at least some people were paying attention to me in my free newsletter. And I was worried that they would not love me anymore or not like me anymore if I asked them for money. But there was that desperation to make some money, to change our lives. So I thought, how can I do this? And so I just upped the level of giving to them of free stuff, and I romanced them. And then I had that romance lead into this offer. And then I made this offer, and that was the first launch. That was in January of 97. And I sent out an email and said, hey, if I've got this new thing coming, and if you want it, print this out and send me a check, because taking online payments then was just like rocket science, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even afford a domain name. And I was publishing on a free website that I got from my internet service provider, we used to call them. And amazingly enough, a few people bought from me. And I remember that first order when it came in, I was just flabbergasted that someone was going to give me money for something I created, because at that point in my life, I'd only had jobs, and I had never had someone give me money for something I created. And I'll tell you what, when that switch flips, when you realize that you can create value in the world and you can figure out how to communicate that value to other people, to strangers, and then have them give you money, that once that switch flips, for me at least, there's no going back. It's like, I did this once, I can do it again and again and again. And that first launch was $1,650, and everyone's got a different frame of reference for money. But at that point, if I could have done a backflip, I would have done 10 backflips. I was just, because I was like, I did this once, I can do it again and again and again, and I might even get better at it. And
Yeah.
here we are.
And what I love about that was in the 90s when like the mechanisms of selling things online was very new. But all of what you're saying, you're echoing 4 or 5 other sessions of, hey, business exists to solve a problem for people. And that's the core. That's never changed and is never going to change. It's like a value exchange. And so I love that, like, so much of how you are selling now is different. There's fancy tools like Mighty Networks, and you're doing it in the format of a community. Back then, it was a free website from your ISP, and it was a whole new world. I'm sure that the computers are a little bit more fancy. The cameras are a little bit more fancy. Everything's a little bit more fancy than it used to be.
Dude, there was not a picture of me online. There was 0 pictures of me online for the first 10 years of my business, because putting a picture online was hard. That was like advanced technology. Sorry to interrupt.
You'd have to like get a scanner. You'd have to like take an actual picture, go to the, like, develop it, and then scan it into the internet. And yeah, the whole thing.
Nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So for those who aren't like really familiar with the formula, and obviously it's a book, it's a massive course. We're not going to cover all of it in a little bit, but give us just like the brief principles of the product launch formula, just so people have an idea of like, okay, you've learned it by doing it and starting this business in desperation, and you've helped a lot of people do it too. Like, give us the core tenets of PLF.
Well, the core tenets I like to talk about are story and sequences and triggers. And first of all, stories are so compelling. You mentioned Don Miller and his amazing business. And I'm actually I'll be at Don's house in 4 or 5 weeks from now.
Amazing.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. So stories are the way we teach, the way we communicate, the way we pull people into our world. And then a launch is sequences, and there's a pre-launch sequence where you deliver value ahead of the launch. We like to say it's that we deliver value before reveal. So the value before you reveal what the offer is. And so what we've over the years designed, codified, developed, and I've done this in concert really with my product launch formula owners. In the early days, it was so crude, and by teaching this and teaching it, you get better through teaching. But also our students, we have brilliant students who then echo back to us and bring their developments to us. And so we have a sequence. It's usually 3 pieces of what we call pre-launch content, and they'll lead people. At the end of the day, we're all, as you said, Darrell, we're solving problems. We're either taking away pain, or we're delivering more pleasure. I like to boil it down to that. And so whether you're teaching someone a second language, or you're teaching them how to meditate, or you're teaching them how to find the love of their lives, or to quit smoking, that there's an opportunity. And that opportunity is to speak that second language, to be able to quit smoking, to have that relationship. So at first you have to give people that hope, show them that hope, show them the opportunity that their life can actually change. And then you take them into showing the transformation and what their life would, how their life would transform. Because speaking a second language is like not what people are after. They're after being able to walk through Paris and actually communicate with the natives there, right? And then the next piece is having them take ownership of who they are going to become when they have quit smoking, when they've have that meditation practice. And then finally you take them into another sequence. So that's the pre-launch sequence. And then the next sequence is what we call the open cart sequence. The pre-launch happens all before anyone can put a credit card in. And then once you get into the open cart phase, that's where you actually start taking orders. And that's all about enrollment, getting them to enroll in that future self, but also getting them to enroll with you and give you their money. So you take them through this sequence, you build this relationship, you build this connection with people. You use these mental triggers through the entire way. Triggers like community is a huge trigger that I love. Like social proof, like likability, what am I looking for, Dan? I'm blanking.
Authority.
Yeah,
Authority is a big one.
Authority, because you have to develop your authority before anyone actually pays attention to you. They have to understand that you're someone they should pay attention to.
Yeah.
Like reciprocity. Once you give something to someone, they feel an obligation to give back to you. So in that pre-launch, you're delivering real value. And so there's many different mechanisms for delivering that pre-launch content. In the early days, it was the email. Then it was email and blogs. Then it was social media. Then it was really ugly screen cap video. Then it was talking head video. Then it was beautiful cinematic video. Then it's podcasts, and then now you can use a tool like Mighty.
That's great. Dan, I want to lean into copywriting here and storytelling, because I think that's such an important part of it. Like,
Sure.
the formula exists, and by the way, I've followed the formula at this point hundreds of times, so I know that it works because I've literally just done it. But like, the formula is only as good as your ability to connect to people, and the way that we're connecting to people is like storytelling and copywriting. So, what are like some of the core principles you think about when you think about copywriting and storytelling and really connecting to people through this formula? Because again, this formula could feel really sterile if you're just like following the formula. It's really like understanding people and connecting to people. And how do you think about that from a copy standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is an area where I think people can easily reduce the formula down to, like you said, something that becomes a little, I don't know, what was the word you said there?
Sterile or formula.
Sterile.
It's like,
Yeah,
I think
sterile.
of like a room with fluorescent lights. It's like kind of boring.
Right,
And kind of sterile.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always like to say is it's about the sequence. It's not about the format. Like, so many people look at a launch, like they might look at a launch that we do. They might look at a lot of launches that, say, some of our PLF owners put on, and they see, well, they put out 3 videos that teach something in some respect, and then they make a sales video and they made a whole bunch of sales. And while that's oftentimes, that's kind of the classic PLF at this point, that's what a lot of people associate as being a launch. What it really comes down to is that story that you tell, and it is that sequence that you tell. And this is something that you can use. I'm sure that you've experimented with a couple different formats. Like, it could be during 3 videos, 4 videos. It could all be in one video. It could all be within emails. It could be on a live broadcast. It could be at a live in-person event. It really comes down to that sequence. So how we teach it as the OTOE. So the very first thing you're doing is you're expressing the opportunity. So that's that first O. So the opportunity is the opportunity for your perfect clients, your avatars. It's the opportunity for their dream to become real. Because if they're searching out somebody, and most of what our clients have is, say, information businesses or coaching businesses or things like that. Just to preface it, you can do this with, say, a physical product or all kinds of other things too, but I'll just use kind of a classic information sort of products. Like, if people are learning, say, how to play guitar, for example, like, they're not just looking for, what chords to play and, when to pluck the strings. They want to be the person who can sit down and play a song for their friends at the next time they have a gathering going on or something like that. They have a dream. They have something that they're trying to achieve, whether they're moving, like Jeff said, moving towards pleasure or moving away pain. So, like, the first thing that you talk about is the opportunity. It's the fact, like, yes, your dream can become real. And I know that because either I've done it personally or because I've taught other people and they've done it personally. So you first bring in that opportunity. You show them, like, yeah, it can actually happen. The next part is transformation. And the transformation, when we say transformation, we mean the transformation that your avatar, your perfect client, undergoes as they start moving towards that dream. So this is where you start to actually teach. This is where you kind of, I think of it as equipping them with the tools to make their dream real. So it's like, yeah, you actually can play guitar and you can do it within 2 weeks or whatever amount of time. I don't play guitar, so I don't know how realistic that is. But within this amount of time, you can get there. And I'm going to show you the basic steps, and you're going to learn it in just 30 minutes and you'll be on your way. So then you teach them, you start to equip them with the tools. You start to get them to believe that they can actually achieve that opportunity. Not just that you've done it, but that they can do it too. And then we go into what we call the ownership experience, which is where they start to really like embody that. They start to really feel like, yes, if they move from I think I can do it to I will do it. And really importantly, I think one really important thing with a launch is that up until this point, up until the point of the sale, or up until the point where you actually ask for a sale, you're really speaking to people like they're going to do it themselves. So it really just draws people in, right? Because you're not just coming out and being like, you can play guitar as long as you give me $400 and buy this thing. And then suddenly, their BSO meter just goes like ding, 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 just gets absolutely pegged and they click away or they go to someone else's page, But if you're speaking to them like, hey, I'm just a helpful mentor. That's usually the approach we take. I'm just a helpful mentor. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you through this process. And you guide them usually as far as is realistic in kind of a free format. But by that point, people see, hey, this opportunity does exist. And I really do think I can get there. I've already learned how to play this really simple pattern. I can see how I could continue to learn, how I could be that person soon. And then there's that bit of that like dark, murky void though, right? Where then they're like, well, okay, but like now this is starting to feel a little more complicated, right? As you learn anything, you start to realize it's a little more complicated than you might have initially thought. And that's the point in which you offer to be their guide. And that's the point where you actually make your offer and say, hey, I have a coaching program. I have a course. I have a live event. I have whatever this is. But throughout that whole thing, you're really keeping that opportunity front and center. I think that's where that messaging and that sequence like really pulls everything together throughout. You're not selling, you're guiding.
I think that is a perfect segue into what's coming up for me now, which is there's a lot of people who are afraid of selling. And they're afraid of selling for really, really good reasons, which is like, I have seen people use formulas like this before to manipulate, to take advantage of, to like try to get me to buy something that I don't want or need. And I'm like, dang it, I got caught again in this thing. I don't actually need it. This isn't actually helping me. And so a lot of people like, they kind of like start putting all this stuff off at hands or arm's length because they are so afraid of becoming that person. Right. And so one of the themes of this entire summit so far is that empathy is a superpower. So what are your thoughts for people who are like super afraid of becoming that like infomercial or that used car salesman or whatever else? Like, how do the good guys use this formula to like actually help people and to actually solve problems? And then what role does empathy play in this whole process for folks?
I think both of us are going to have different answers on this. And I think this is something we could do like a 3-hour show on. Because first of all, there's so many people that are afraid of selling. And I was one of them. And it took me years to really figure this out. And, first of all, how do you not? So I had this exact conversation with Mark Devine, who was like a SEAL commander, a Navy SEAL commander. And he was just coming into this world and he was becoming an author and a speaker. And he's like, how do I do this without being creepy, without being manipulative? And I'm like, you do it by not being creepy and not being manipulative. I mean, it's that simple. If you're asking this question, for all the viewers out there, if you're asking, I don't want to manipulate people. I don't want to be creepy. I don't want to be that used car. If you're asking that question, hooray you, because you are not going to become that person. Right. So that at the basic level, that's the answer to that question. There are so many people that come into my world that are like they're therapists, or they're in some type of healing profession. They just came to their profession out of service, and it's almost like they took a vow of poverty. I'm an artist. I sell art, or I'm supposed to be the starving artist. No, you're not. And or if you're a therapist, you just got into it to help people. A counselor, you just got into it to help people, and it's not about making money. Well, what's that saying? It's hard to give from an empty cupboard or an empty shelf. And the best way you can help people is by building a business, and businesses need to be profitable, and to be profitable, you need to make sales. Barry Baumgartner, a good friend of mine for many, many years, says that sales is service. And like one of the ways, like this is something that Dan helped me conceptualize. It's like if I could, like right now, I said, Darrell, you know what? Instead of doing this interview, let's give people, a 3-year Harvard MBA starting right now. We're going to stay on for the next 48 hours, and we're going to give people an MBA right here. How many people would say, yeah, I'm on for 48 hours? Some people might say they would, but really they're not invested enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not you have to get people to invest in themselves, to enroll in themselves before you can take them all the way to the finish line, or else they're just not gonna follow through. So yeah, I'm gonna shut up and let Dan talk, because he can talk about this for a long time, but sales is service. And show up and serve your people. And you can serve. That's what the pre-launch does. We give people, in our we're about a month and a half out. We do once a year, we do a big launch for product launch formula. It's very meta, like you said, Darrell. And when we do it, my goal is over a span of about 7 to 10 days to give people the second best training in the world on doing a launch. That's my goal. The best is if you buy from me, but you spend those 7 or 10 days, and we're going to deliver amazing value to you, whether you buy or not. And the world we're in is a world where we can afford to deliver great value, and in doing that, it will bring great value to us.
Yeah, Dan, before you go, I want to double click on that idea. Is like, well, are you creepy? Are you a used car salesman? Are you that person? Like, how are you all of a sudden going to become something that you're not? It's like, and Nikki just said this in the last section. It's like, it takes a lot less energy just being yourself than trying to play a character of somebody else. It's like, if you're not that person, then you can't automatically or magically become that person. And so I think that the formula is neutral in that way. It's like, this isn't like going to turn you into something that you're not along the way. And I love double tapping on that, Jeff. So Dan, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. And I say every now and again, we see people come in. I think this used to happen more. I think maybe this is one of the better things that have come out of social media, and people being used to watching people share a little bit more. But, we've seen people come in and they do sort of like, they automatically assume almost a little bit that I have to be like that salesman, and I have to talk in the royal we, and, I have to say, like, we have developed this thing. And it's like, bro, who's we? It's just you. Like, and actually when people try to do that, which is almost always just out of something that they feel like that's what they need to do in order to make sales, it works worse, right? It works better if you're authentic. It works better if you're sharing your own experience and connecting with other people who are like you. Because, realistically, whatever you're offering, whatever you're teaching, you're not going to be the only person doing it. So you're not necessarily grabbing the entire market. You're not grabbing every single person who ever wants to learn the thing. You're going to be grabbing the people who connect with you, who want to have a journey similar to yours, who identify with you and see themselves in you. And by the way, I think one of the most powerful marketing stories and copywriting stories you can tell is, I think I'm a lot like you. I was in this spot. I really wanted this. And then this is what I did and this is what I achieved. Like, that's what makes people resonate with you. But, I really had the same thought while you're asking the question as Jeff, which is just sales is service,
Yeah.
And I think Like everyone listening right now, like, can you think of a time in which you had a dream or a goal or something that you really wanted to do, but you found it difficult to do and you found it challenging to do by yourself? And you found maybe you didn't make it to the goal or you didn't make it to the goal the first time. Maybe you had someone who helped you and kind of pushed you towards your goal a little bit, maybe a friend or a coach or a colleague or a relative or a partner. Like, I'm just thinking about it, like, if you got a friend, for example, just pure example, say a friend who's got a dream to run a marathon one day, and they're not a runner, but they're like, hey, I really want to get in shape. I've got this dream to be a marathon runner. And like, if every now and again you check in with your friend and you say, hey, how's that going? Like, are you doing them a disservice? If you see that your friend, they really want this goal, but they're having trouble making to the gym, they're having trouble going out on runs. If you start calling them and saying, hey man, you wanna go for a run tomorrow? Like, how about we just go for a run? And then they say, like, okay, yeah, and they go with you. And now, are they closer to their goal because of that? Something that they might not have done without that little bit of pushing, without that little bit of encouragement? Like, is that friend going to come back if you call them up and say, hey man, there's a marathon in 2 months, how about we sign up and we do it together, and I'll be with you every step of the way and we train together? Is your friend going to say, what a slimy asshole? Like, no. They're going to be grateful. They're going to sometimes people need that little bit of a belief, someone else out there who believes in them and who says, you know what? I know you can do this. I know it doesn't feel like you can do this, but I was in the same spot as you and I was able to train. I was able to run the marathon. Like, I know what it takes. Like, I'm going to help you. Like, that is service. And I would say, if you're selling something, if like what you have to sell, what you have to offer, what you have to communicate or speak about, or what you want to make your business out of, like, if you know that it can help someone, like, and it doesn't have to help everybody, like, that's not going to help everybody, but if you think it can help somebody else achieve something and you know that that thing is valuable, then you effectively communicating how powerful it is to achieve that transformation, communicating to them that yes, that goal is A, it's achievable, and B, it's worth the effort. It's worth going for. It's worth striving for. Like, that's doing them a service at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
There's almost like a moral obligation too. Like if somebody was drowning and you had a life raft, and this is getting pretty extreme, but like we'll take it to the extreme. If somebody's
Mhm.
drowning and you have a life raft and you don't give them the life raft, like that's not awesome.
Not
That's
awesome.
a horrible way. It's a horrible way of existing. But if
Right.
there are people in the world who truly want to have some sort of transformation and you have a way that can help them, there's a little bit of an obligation to do it and to get like what I love about the formula is it's a framework to get really good at communicating about it. And
Yeah.
Dan, you just kind of mentioned that. And I think that's it. It's like all we're doing is becoming better communicators about the transformation that somebody can have with whatever it is that we have to offer, whether it's a course or a community or a program or coaching, whatever it is. It's like we're just getting better at communicating about it. And the people who win, like, it's not always the best product. It's the people who've learned to communicate it the best. And and I think that's such a key thing here. So this is why I love the work that you all do. It's obviously transformed myself as well. But what I'd love to tap into here is like I remember I don't know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, recurring revenue becoming a really big part of this world. Where before it was like, maybe one-off sales or course sales, and like the mechanism of how all this has transitioned a little bit. You guys have also then moved into a community format for what you're doing here. So talk to me about like some of that transition over the last few years and how you're thinking about business differently in this new world. And then how community plays a part of that as well.
So that's a great question. There's a lot there. I have had recurring revenue. I've basically been selling subscriptions. That first launch in 1996 or January 97, that was actually for a subscription product. And I'm approaching 30 years in business here. And I think there's about only 18 months maybe where I did not have a recurring revenue part of the business. It just makes life so much easier. So much easier when you know you every month starts and you're not starting from scratch. It's just life is just easier and better when you know you have a certain amount of income coming in. And I think in general, it's not too much would you rather make a sale and make a one-time sale, or make a sale and keep on getting paid? I think, can we all agree getting paid continually is better? And it's generally not a harder thing. And I think, all of us, almost all of us are selling some type of transformation. Even if you're selling paintings, we're selling some type of transformation. And transformation involves change. It involves behavior change. If someone's going to, again, create that meditation practice, learn that language, quit smoking, lose weight, learn to have a better tennis serve. It requires work out, build a new body. It requires behavior change. And behavior change is well, it's only hard. Well, it can be hard, but only if you're human. It's like, it's just, we all have things we'd like to have different in our lives. And it's not easy. It's not like that. And so I think that continual support is the way to deliver behavior change over time. And I think one of the best, one of the best ways to create behavior change for all of us is by surrounding yourself with people that are on that same path, that are on that same journey. And that's what community is. It's surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are moving in the same direction that you are. Life is easier when you're surrounded with community, and behavior change is easier when you're surrounded by community. And so I think for most of us, for many of us, maybe most of us, we're going to be better off if we have a way to continually serve our clients. And I think a membership, a community, many different names for that. But it both makes for a great business model, but it also makes it for a great way to get results for our people.
Yeah, that's so good. Dan, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, if we're communicating with people online, then what are the chances that that person on the other side of the screen has a real life community around the thing that you're speaking to them about? Like, they might, but there's a really good chance they don't. Like, we're talking to entrepreneurs, and so everyone on here, like, how many people in your life, in your just regular day-to-day life, have businesses or have followings or trying to build a community? Like, how many of the people in your day-to-day life, can you speak about your the issues or successes or triumphs that you have with? Like, if you're anything like most of the people that we help and that we serve, they might be the only entrepreneur they know. And it's a lonely world, right? It's lonely when you have to, the friends might try to help, but first they have to explain how their business even works beforehand, and it can be just a very lonely sort of experience. And that's where being able to offer someone a community, in that case, being able to offer them like a group of like-minded people who get it, who they can come to with their issues, and have those people know what they're talking about and identify with it and be like, hey man, I got you. Like, let's jump on the phone. Let's talk about it. Or, just exchange DMs, or like, that's huge, like when we bring community into what we do, we're offering people the chance to not be alone in their work. And that's huge on so many levels.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that phrase, not be alone. I mean, just think about what that means to people.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. When
I-
we have people in every crazy niche you can imagine. I was thinking we had this guy who was into sword fighting, but like I forget some special kind of sword fighting that none of us ever heard of, right? Carving wooden dolls, Japanese fly fishing, not fly fishing, Japanese fly fishing. And if that's like your thing and you're geeking out on it, but no one in your real world is into that, right? And being able to touch into, reach out to people around the world that are into that thing and not be alone, incredibly powerful.
Massive.
Incredibly powerful.
Massive.
So powerful. I mean, obviously, we believe in that very deeply here. It's why we're doing what we're doing, because we believe in that so much. And Gina has been thinking about this for as long as anybody in the world has been thinking about how we pull community together, specifically online. So I love that. A
We
couple
just,
of
Darrell, I gotta say, we just had Gina on our podcast, Dan and I, and our co-host Chris on our podcast. And what a freaking rock star she is. Oh my goodness. That was like the
yeah,
best podcast interview we've ever had. We have this 2-minute taco break we take where we ask very deep, penetrating questions regarding tacos. And Gina just like took that to a whole different level. It was awesome.
that's so fun. Yeah, it's why I'm here. Is like the point of view that she and Mighty have on community is the most believable thing I've done in my career. Because I truly believe, for people who are getting started, community is actually the best starting point. Because all I have to do is find people who want to go through a similar transition as me or a similar transformation as me. I don't have to become an expert. I don't have to sell expertise. I don't have to build a body of content. I don't have to do anything. I can get started right now by saying, hey, I'm into this thing, or I'm wanting to go through this transformation. Do you want to come with me? And it's just gathering that group of people. It's, to me, the lowest barrier to entry of any business online that I've ever seen in my career. And I've been doing this for not as long as you, Jeff, but for about half as long. And it's so believable to me. It's like I see so many people who are like, well, I've got to be an expert at this thing. And expertise is a great way to build a business, but it's not the only way. And it takes a long time. And so to get started in community, it's like just that, like, I don't want to be alone in the midst of this transformation is such an easy way for people to get started. I believe in it so much. So we are huge believers in that, doing it together. We're huge believers in connecting people together and not being alone. And it's a big deal. So I'm
Darrell, you just said you a couple of words you used in describing creating a community-based business is you said that you think it's the easiest, and yeah, I'll agree, and it's the most believable. Yeah, I'll agree, and it's also, I think, the most transformative. If
I
you're
agree.
really in it to change people's lives, I mean, you could make an argument that in people join Product Launch Formula, we've got this amazing training that we've been literally honing and making better for 20 years. But you could almost, and then they get this community we've built. And you could almost make an argument that the community, we could leave the course aside and just give people the community, and they might get just as much transformation from the community.
Yeah.
So,
Especially in a world of AI where like the way that we learn is fundamentally changing, like just plain and simple. The way that we're learning is fundamentally changing. And so now the people who gather the people together, I think, are going to be the ones that help kind of like lead the transformation or issue transformation spaces. And I'm all in on that. So it's a big part of how we're thinking. One thing I'd love to kind of like ask before we're done here. We've just got a few minutes left. We really could talk about this for 3 hours, I think, guys. There's a lot here to unpack.
or 3 days.
Yeah, for forever. Is the idea of relaunching. And there's 2 myths that I see come up here is, hey, what if I've launched my business out into the world and I've heard crickets? Like, do I have to like rebuild everything, rethink everything? Does that like a mark that my business is a failure? And then the other thing is, okay, well, I've launched it. I can't launch it again. And there's kind of like 2 myths that I see popping up about relaunching. But talk to me how you think about relaunching in kind of those 2 myths, kind of different directions there.
Yeah. Dan, you want to jump in or?
Yeah, What I'm thinking is, yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that we have seen come up for sure. People are, they're, if something didn't work so well, then they feel bad and they feel almost like people will have seen that they did something and that then it didn't work well and they'll be, judged. Or if they change it and try to do it again, then it feels like, are they being, not congruent or something like that? I think one of the really big benefits right now, there's a challenge for sure in the fact that there's a lot of people who are competing for space online. There's a lot of voices out there, but that brings benefits too. And it brings the benefit that, like, if you put something out there, and before I say more, I think the biggest problem that someone can have is being paralyzed and is being afraid of starting and is not moving into action because they feel like their idea might not be perfect, or because maybe it didn't work super well the first time. Like, if it didn't work super well the first time, then, well, great news. That probably means that no one really saw it and something didn't work well, but that's okay, because no one saw it or no one remembers it. That's fine. Look at it, think, hey, what could I do better? What could I add on to there? What could I, improve? Try it again. If it doesn't work, well, okay, no problem. You've learned that wasn't the thing. So now you find another little data point. Maybe you get some coaching. Maybe you go to your community and you say, I think leaning into your community is a great way to start. Like, we teach a process called the seed launch, in which the entire thing, it's literally, I would say this is one of the best ways to launch or to relaunch if you're starting out. Because rather than try to guess everything ahead of time and try to figure out everything ahead of time and like create something for people, like, you literally just go to your community, whatever level that is, even if it's a really small community, and you just say, like, hey, what do you want to learn from me about? And people tell you what they want to learn to you about. And you say, awesome. Hey, I'm going to do a small group coaching thing, and it's going to be super interactive, and you can ask me any questions you want. We're just going to talk about this, and we're going to go on this journey together. And if you're with me, then, hey, let's go. And you make a small, usually lower priced offer. And all it is that people join you. And then you just send a couple of emails and you say, awesome. Hey, we're learning about this together. What do you want to learn? What's been stopping you? What's been holding you back? How do you want to go forward? What would be the most helpful? People tell you that. You just literally have them reply to you. And then you teach that. You just jump on Zoom and you just have a conversation with folks. You work with folks one-on-one. You just talk about the thing that you care about. And by the way, I think you don't even have to be very far ahead of them. A lot of times, like you said earlier, people like to learn from top tier experts. People also really like to learn from someone who's just a couple steps ahead of them, someone who it's so fresh in their head about what it's like to be starting out, So I think, I don't know. One of the great things about it is that if you launch and something didn't work well, it's just a data point. It really doesn't mean anything. And in a few days, literally, people will probably have forgotten about it. You just try again. You just do it again.
And can I launch the same product more than once? Like, how often should I be thinking about it? How frequently should I be doing it? And I think this is the thing. I've actually seen this happen way more than I can count. It's like, all right, I've launched it. That's it.
Yeah.
Now on to the thing.
Well, if
you know,
you wouldn't be here. I mean,
if you can't relaunch the same thing, I bet I need to go back in time 20 years and stop relaunching product launch formula because we've done it once to twice a year. We used to do it twice a year. Now we do it once a year for 20 years. It's so first of all, just on a purely tactical standpoint, like if you have a list of whatever your niche is, if let's say I had 1 million people on my email list and in my social following, what percentage of online entrepreneurs or would-be online entrepreneurs is that? 1%. It's like there's the world has not heard of you. I mean, like in some spaces, I'm a big deal. I do events, in-person events with 1,000 people. I'm a New York Times #1 bestseller. Sold, I don't know, 300,000 or 400,000 books. In our live trainings, we'll have tens of thousands of people. In some way, I'm a big deal, but 99.9% of the world's never heard of me, right? And your business is the same way. So people have not heard of you. And even the people that have heard of you, Dan can tell you, because he likes to dig into the numbers and dig into the backstory of people, that we have people that watch 2 or 3 or 4 of our launches before they join us. So the world hasn't, you got to, every serious entrepreneur, every serious online business entrepreneur, they're in continual launch mode. They're in continual promotion mode. It's not like you're launching every weekend. We do it once a year to the general public, but we'll have little behind the scenes promotions as well. So you always have to be in promotion mode. You always have to be launching. There's always something new that you can always go deeper. People always want you to go deeper. They want to hear from you, or else they'll unsubscribe. And if they unsubscribe, that's okay. Next, forward, move on. Doesn't matter. If you want to get your work out into the world, if you want to build your income, if you want to build an impact, if you want to build your lifestyle, you have to move. You have to launch.
Well, that's a great spot to end. Guys, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thanks for being so generous. I know that you guys are really busy. You've got lots going on. So thanks for being here, sharing your wisdom over 30 years plus of what you're doing. I'm so grateful for this. It was fun to meet you in person, and then also to have this opportunity to share your wisdom. Where can people find you all? And you mentioned that in a few weeks you've got your event coming up. So where can people find you? And again, thanks for being here.
Productlaunchformula.com. And there's always going to be some kind of free resource for you there. And specifically, our launch masterclass is coming up in August. And that's our fancy name for our launch. But it truly is a masterclass that you can get for free. And we will try to make an offer. So lots of free stuff, but also, watch it with the lens of Jeff's doing what he's teaching. And you can learn a lot from that as well.
Amazing. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Great to meet you, Dan.
Yeah.